This is the SImpit. I'm your host, Shaun Cole, but the real star of today's show are the P2000 pedals by Simagic. The P2000 pedals are yet another high-end pedal set, but this set has a set of features that I have never seen on any pedals that I've ever tested here in the studio. The P2000 pedals that we are testing are the 3-pedal set that are made almost entirely of aluminum and features load cells. Yes, that was plural, load cells. It also features multiple, or I should say again, plural hydraulics on more than just the brake pedal. And on top of that, they come with a bunch of adjustability for tuning to get them exactly the way you want them to feel. The P2000 pedals come in either a 2 or 3 pedal variation, depending on whether you want to drive with or without a clutch. And it also comes in a 100 or 200 kilogram variation, depending on how strong do you want your brake pedal to be. In all cases, it starts off with this very beefy, very thick aluminum plate that is common to all of the variations. And in the 2-pedal set with the 100 kilogram load cell, you're looking at $665, and with a 200 kilogram load cell, they go for $720. And for those who prefer driving with a clutch and want that 3rd pedal, the 3-pedal variation goes for $815, and with a 200 kilogram load cell, they go for $869. So today we are testing the 3-pedal variation with a 100 kilogram load cell, so that $815 price point. But if you think about it, when we talk about it, if you just filter out when we talk about the clutch, it tells you everything you need to know about the 2-pedal variation, because everything else is identical. I would like to thank Ricmotech for sending these over. They're one of the North American suppliers of Simagic gear, and they also included a couple of hop-up options. So these are a little bit even upgraded from just the standard 3-pedal set. We have the heel plate. This is the Ricmotech heel plate, which goes for $42. And we also have the extra long throttle pedal, because the stock configuration comes with the same pedal face as you see on the clutch and on the brake pedal, and that long pedal face being an additional $44. When I first opened the box of the P2000 pedals, I was immediately impressed. I love when things come packaged nicely, and this came in a nice giant piece of foam with cutouts for all the parts. On top was a warranty card, along with a giant aluminum heel plate and an assembly diagram. Underneath that were the actual pedals, along with a few other parts. You have the 3 pedal faces, the rather sophisticated and multiple part brake assembly, a throttle pedal, and the clutch pedal. Also included with the pedal set is an extra spring set, or a tuning kit, with various compression springs, along with some tools, the controller board, and the needed cables, along with some spare hardware. As you saw from the previous footage, the Simagic P2000 pedals do come in multiple pieces out of the box, so it does require a little bit of assembly, but it is one of those level 1 or very easy to do projects, and it comes with all the hardware and tools you need to complete the job, so I would call it very easy. It all starts with this giant aluminum base plate, and then installing each item to it. I started with the brake pedal, and you can see a series of holes in the middle of the plate that give you a little bit of left and right freedom when mounting the pedals. When mounting the pedal, I chose the middle position and used the supplied bolts to hold it down. I could have installed it left or right as much as 45 millimeters in either direction in 15 millimeter increments. The brake's secondary part also mounts to the base along with its mount, and that allows for vertical or horizontal mounting. From there I mounted the gas pedal, which also had a few holes to choose from going left and right, and the same for the clutch. In each of those cases you can move the pedal left and right about 33 millimeters in 11 millimeter increments. The controller board is just a board, sandwiched in acrylic, and it has no formal mount. Simagic supplied some double stick tape to just attach it to a good spot on the base plate. Each pedal then plugs directly into that box in the pre-marked positions for each pedal, and if you notice, there's a spot for a not yet available on their website handbrake, and a glimpse into the future perhaps. On the opposite side is the USB plug-in point that goes directly to the computer, and I then added the Ricmotech heel plate riser. The base plate is drilled to accommodate that heel plate, and with 4 supplied bolts, it was mounted to the aluminum base plate. The stock pedal faces are all identical, and each one mount to each pedal arm with 2 bolts. There are 3 different heights that the faces can be installed onto the arms. Also supplied with the pedals from Ricmotech was the tall throttle pedal face. This is more my style, and I went ahead and changed that out too. It mounts the exact same way as the stock faces, so 2 bolts later, that was accomplished as well. So you can see we have our Simagic P2000 pedal set all built up, ready to go. And to be honest with you, I've already been hammering on these for quite some time. So you're already looking at a fairly worn-in set or used set. And we can talk about the way the parts all are made and assembled and take a close-up look of the pedal set, which has, quite honestly, some features to it that are unique to this pedal set. And I have tested, I don't know, 20, 30 pedal sets over the years, and this one has some features that I've never seen before, and that was really fun for me as a reviewer. So let's talk about the Simagic P2000 pedal set and some of its features, starting with this base plate. The base plate is a really, really thick piece of aluminum. This thing is super beefy. It is going to be strong and rigid no matter what rig you mount it on. So even if you're on an inferior rig, it should keep the pedals. They might move the entire rig, but it should keep all of this very universal and good fitting. So I'm impressed with that pedal plate right out of the gate. It is 12 3/4 inches wide, which ends up being 324 millimeters, and it is 15 inches front to back, which ends up being 381 millimeters. And since we're covering the distances, even though we haven't moved on to the pedals, you're looking at 10 1/4 inches tall from the deck to the top of the pedals, which ends up being 273 millimeters. So those are your overall dimensions. So looking at the pedals, and I do want to look at each pedal independently because they are all very unique and have features, again, that I've never seen on many pedals. So let's start off with the throttle pedal here, which is a very, very cool throttle pedal. You start with this machined aluminum lower piece. It's black, anodized. It's got the Simagic logo on it. You can even see some CNC markings here that they left, like the little marks from the head, to let you know that it was machined like it is. From there, at the front, you've got a pivot point with these red anodized bushings that are going to help wear. And you can see there's a gap here between the pedal arm and the pedal base that has another bushing inside that's going to give it that real smooth movement and at the same time prevent noise. So the pedal arm itself is also machined black anodized aluminum, and you can see it is very thick. It's pretty thick and it's pretty wide in both directions, so you can tell it's really built for rigidity and for strength and for really looking cool too. You have 4 installation points along the arm for the shaft of the assembly, and that's going to change the friction because it's going to change the leverage, so it does change the tension. Now, what makes this pedal so unique, so different from every pedal I've ever tested, there is a load cell in this gas pedal. It isn't a potentiometer. It isn't even technically measuring distance. It is, like a load cell does, measuring pressure. So there's a little spring here under the arm that pushes pressure down on that load cell, and then via software, there's a little computation done. It's actually done in this little board here that is converting that pressure into a distance signal, because that is what we're looking for in a throttle pedal. So that is extremely unique, extremely cool, and something that I wanted to know. Could I tell? Could I feel a difference when testing? So moving on to the housing, and again, talk about unique, talk about interesting pedals, a design I've never seen before. You have a hydraulic cylinder here. And this hydraulic cylinder is taking the place of what is normally a spring on a standard or conventional throttle. And it is a really unique idea. So with that, you have a setting here that is going to change the resistance or the pressure inside of this cylinder. So you have 6 different settings, and it's really cool. Red, anodized, machined. It all looks super cool on top of that. But at the lightest setting, you have a real, I would call that a medium level throttle spring tension, and a pretty much a 1-to-1. The pressure I push in is the pressure it's giving me back, and that does feel very similar to like a carbureted throttle body type car and that type of a thing in real life. Now when I increase the setting, I'm going to go 2 clicks up, it gets a little stronger on the pressure, and it also reduces the speed that the pedal returns. So for those who want a heavier spring, if you go all the way up to 6, this thing is actually, you can see the way, it's not just a lot of pressure, but it's damping at the same time. So it's like slowing down and accelerated. I guess if you have a real problem with throwing that throttle on, that's gonna slow you down. But it does slow down the return. So you can see my hand comes off the pedal when I return. And when you're on that first setting, you're gonna have a lot more one-to-one. So it's gonna be a little harder to get that foot off the pedal before you have that pedal, marking your foot until it gets to its stop position. Another very cool, unique feature of this throttle pedal is this guy right here. Now, I undid the set spring so I could do this, but when I spin this guy all the way towards the pedal arm, you can see it has a lot of throw. That is a lot of length or distance or throw to the pedal. And I like that. I like a long throw, but not everybody does. Well, if you spin this guy down, it almost cuts that down in half. So you spin that guy down, there's a set screw to lock it in place, and you can see, look at how little movement there is there versus when I go like this, all right? And then the last thing I can really point you out on the throttle is this right here. This little rubber bushing is very cool because without it, you'd have a metal-on-metal clack, and with it, you have a nice soft bump stop at the end of the motion of the gas pedal, which is really cool. So obviously, this is a very unique gas pedal, unlike any I've tested, and that takes us to the brake pedal, which again, without even getting ahead of myself, is a very unique, it uses principles that I've never tested before. So let's talk about it. Basically, you're looking at a very similar bottom, machined aluminum base with the Simagic logo, very similar pedal arm with some adjustable points for where you mount the shaft, and that'll adjust the friction a little bit. Same styling with the machined out silver grooves and a very cool look to the brake pedal. Now, on the back is where it all gets crazy and different. You've got this very large master cylinder. Yes, this is a hydraulic system. So when you press here, a cylinder moves, pressure goes in, and from this master cylinder, pressure goes down to the slave cylinder. That's sort of like a clutch system on a conventional car, similar to a brake, but it's actually closer to a clutch if you think about it. And then when you press this, the pressure goes through that to the secondary cylinder, which then pulls its own shaft in under operation. And then you have these adjustable springs that are adjustable in preload by spinning this nut in and locking it down. And they're also adjustable because Simagic was so cool, but to send its own tuning kit. So it came stock with a red and a yellow, and the yellow is the lightest spring, and it's gonna have the most distance because you can see the thickness difference in the coils. And when this compresses, it's gonna be thicker than this, which is travel of the pedal. The more springs you put like that, the less the pedal's gonna compress, and the heavier tension it's gonna take, the more pressure it's gonna take to compress them versus these. Now I went to the green and the blue, which is gonna be the stiffest they give you, and a medium, I would call it, which gave me sort of a 2-stage brake that also changed the distance, made it a shorter throw than the stock. But thank you very much, Simagic, for including a tuning kit, because that is something that a lot of companies will charge you extra for and really lets you tailor the pedal to the feel that you want. Now, we've talked about all of these hydraulics. We've talked about the resistance. So when a hydraulic pedal activates, it's got a really distinct feel that is different than just a standard load cell on its own. A hydraulic system, for people who race cars, you get motor memory on how that should feel. We talked about the throttle spring, same thing on a brake pedal. Now, what's different or unique comparing this to other hydraulic systems like the Ricmotech real gear pedals that I use all the time is that right here in this sandwich of springs, when it's compressing these springs, it's actually pressing upon the load cell. The load cell is what is sending the electronic signal to the board, not measuring pressure of the hydraulic system, which is again very, very unique. And that takes us to a clutch. And the clutch, the clutch, poor little clutch. Clutches are always so neglected. Again, unique, different from any design I've ever tested before, and I really do appreciate Simagic testing the boundaries of what we can do. So you have the same type of aluminum base, except for it's a little different because instead of the hinge point being all the way at the rear, you actually have a piston drive with a cam action. So I'm going to activate this because it is unique. You can see these roller bearings. You can see these roller bearings right here that are in this channel that are going to get to, let's call it the fall off point. When you're talking about a way a clutch mechanism activates, they always have a point where you get to the end of the clutch points and the plates or springs, and then it just falls through. That's when you're beyond full application of the pedal. And so you've got that kind of mechanism. You get about 3/4 of the way through the movement, and then all of a sudden it just falls to the very end. And that is similar to the way a clutch really feels. Now, while that is giving you the feeling or the resistance via this spring, and again, to the rescue, thank you Simagic, is a tuning kit for the clutch. So you have different spring tensions. You can see I have about the medium tension spring. So if I wanted a lighter one, I could go to the blue. If I wanted super heavy, I could go to the black, and that would change the tension before the fall off point. So thank you for a tuning kit there. Also, I haven't tried it, but I understand you can put one of these in here. So if you like a really soft, singular throw, like instead of a 2-stage type brake, you can actually put one of these in place of this spring stack and try a totally different feel on the brake. I haven't done that. I'm actually very happy with my blue-green combination. I thought the red-yellow was good for people who like a real soft brake with a lot of throw. I like more of a Formula 1 style, but if I really wanted Formula 1, I'd change out the blue one for this red one, and then we'd be almost locked out. So, anyway, getting back to our clutch pedal, which is where we were, and our tuning kit, you basically have the same thing as you had on the throttle. You've got a load cell, bar-style load cell right there, and when the arm is pressed, there's a spring right here that is applying pressure on the load cell. And then via the board, it is converting that signal into a distance reading, and it is a very unique, very cool design. So I think I've covered everything except for the pedal faces themselves. You're looking at the stock pedal faces are these square ones, and you're looking at 4 inches tall, which is 102 millimeters, and you're looking at 2 3/8 inch wide, which is 60 millimeters. Now I have changed that out for the extra tall long pedal, which I think is really awesome. You've got the Simagic logo here. You've got the cutaway for heel toe. So for those who put their heel down and the top of their foot on the brake when they're heel toeing, it allows them the clearance they need to get their foot right there instead of if this pedal was the same width all the way top. It is 9 inches tall, which is 229 millimeters, and it's 51 millimeters or 2 inches wide at the top here. So other than the heel plate, now this is the Ricmotech heel plate. And as I mentioned, the base is pre-threaded for all of the pedals to be mounted in different positions. You also have the heel plate, it's pre-threaded for this, and it literally just bolts down on it. Nice thing about this plastic one is I've already been using this for a month, and I don't see any signs whatsoever of wear. I've used aluminum plates on their own, and this would be very scarred up. I saw a carbon fiber one, and I thought, that's cool, but aren't my heels going to make a mess of a sheet of carbon fiber over time? Anyway, this plate worked out really nice. It lifts your heels up a little bit, and that's how I was testing the pedals as well. And I think that tells you everything you need to know about the way they operate, some of the adjustability, and some of the very unique, very cool features of the P2000 pedals by Simagic. So now we're going to get down to driving them and see how they really feel under our feet. The Simagic P2000 pedals are plug and play, so you can just take that USB, plug it into your computer, it'll recognize it, you can calibrate them in-game and use the pedals. It's that simple. At the same time, they do give you all the hardware to bolt the pedals down to your rig. Now, one thing I will say, they have these really cool countersunk bolts that go onto the plate, and they're low profile, you can even see them. You might need to move the brake or clutch or gas pedal out of the way a little bit to get the hardware in and then remount the back end of the pedal. but that's pretty easily done. But what you can see is the nuts they supplied you are actually the type that work with T-slot or aluminum extrusion. So you can totally tell that they thought or were planning that you would be putting these onto a profile style chassis, which gives you an idea how heavy duty the pedals are, and that is a fair warning. Now, the pedals, like I said, they are plug and play, but there is software from Simagic that will allow calibration, so you can set the dead zones or the full limit of the pedals. And if you're going to make a big change to the springs, which we'll talk about during the driving section of this, you will definitely want to recalibrate just to make sure Windows is seeing the full distance. And then I had no problems whatsoever. They are flicker free. They held their calibration very, very well. As you can see, or you've heard, the Simagic P2000 pedals really do have a ton of features. They are a very unique design, which is really cool. But with all that said, how do they really perform on track? That's what we're really talking about. Starting off with that construction, that super thick aluminum base, the really rigid aluminum machine pieces that make up the bodies of all three pedals makes for a very stiff and sturdy pedal set. It makes for a very firm footing and a great starting point. I, from the very beginning, did add the heel plate. I have smaller feet, and it lifted them into a better position on the pedal faces, as well as I have seen what my heels will do to most finishes over time, and this heel plate seems to be very resistant to wear. This is what it looks like after a full month of rigorous testing. It is also soft and reduces heel fatigue depending on your footwear or not. Speaking of footwear, we can now talk about the pedal faces. On the stock pedals, there is a hint of curve to the face, which feels really nice on my shoes. Despite the faces having small holes indenting into them, they are fairly slippery faces, which was fine for me, my shoes, and my style of driving. But for those looking for super grippy pedals, they might need to add a little bit of grip tape to get the texture that they want. I did opt for the long gas pedal, and it is perfectly flat, and even more slippery for people in socks. The cutout shape did work well for clearance and comfortable heel-toe driving. Focusing more directly on the throttle pedal and its movement, I have to be honest, I was really intrigued, and I dare say concerned about how the load cell being used here would feel. And much to my pleasure, and maybe even more to my amazement, it worked out just fine. The movement of the pedal is very, very smooth, and with the damper setting on the lowest number, 1, it has a fairly light enough touch for all-day driving and comfort, and enough resistance to really control the amount of throttle coming off turns. I also found setting number 2 and 3 to be fairly good for normal driving for those who like a heavier feeling pedal. Honestly, anything above 3 pretty much felt unnatural or different than any car I have ever actually driven. Adding to the comfort of the pedal feel is the rubber stop that lives on the throttle shaft and prevents the metal-on-metal clunk that some pedals suffer from. I personally like a long throw to my throttle pedal, and I found that in its stock configuration, and it achieved even as much as I would want for a long throw, which is probably more than a lot of people are going to want on their throttle pedal. You can dial this in by turning the adjuster, which greatly reduces its overall throw if desired. When I focused on the brake pedal, I approached it with the same intrigue and concern. It is a load cell brake that uses hydraulics to control the resistance and feel. I have used load cell brakes. I have used hydraulic brakes, but I have never seen a hybrid of the two like we have here. Well, much like the hydraulic pedals use a similar master and slave and either elastomer bushings or springs to create a resistance and feel, we have the same setup here. And the same type of feeling is delivered. A feeling of lesser resistance that quickly builds up the harder you press. This is not a linear movement, and when using hydraulic pedals, I've always felt that the faster you press the pedal builds up faster pressure, more than the travel is actually being measured. So a slow application at a farther distance will give you less braking than a faster application when using hydraulic pedals. And to me, that is how real car brakes feel. Now with that said, I still can't really feel how the load cell affects that. To be honest, it almost makes me eat my words about hydraulics and the speed theory, as we are not reading that pressure. It really comes down to how much and how fast do the springs compress that load cell. When using the tuning kit, there are enough options for just about any realistic braking setup. Now, to achieve a heavier Formula 1 style brake pedal feel, and by using the heavier or heaviest springs, you will automatically make the overall travel less. And if you want a super soft feeling pedal, it will be the default of the design to have much more travel, as the springs material take up much less room. There's no way to accomplish both simultaneously, but from my experience, this is also very realistic. I've never really had both in any real car or race car. In general, the faster the car, the harder the brake pedal. The clutch pedal, in an attempt to not be outdone by its sister, the brake and gas, is also a unique, one-of-a-kind design. Much like the gas pedal, it does also use a load cell in place of a potentiometer. Like the other pedals, it is very smooth action of the movement, and with the 4 springs to choose from, you will be able to get the kind of pressure you're looking for. The fall-off point does a pretty good job of giving the proper clutch feeling, or at least as good as any sim can actually deliver. The pedal was springy and would also return in that super fast clutch return way as it climbs the fall-off hill, as it snaps as soon as it clears that fall-off hill on return. When it came to spacing, I was able to get the pedals exactly where I wanted them, and it actually left room for adjustment in each direction for each pedal. When 2-foot driving, or left foot braking, I was able to get enough distance between the gas and brake for both feet to operate the pedals without hitting each other. And when it comes down to doing heel-toe driving, you'd be able to relocate the pedals or change the spacing if you needed to operate the pedals in that manner. And the long gas pedal, with that cutout spot, worked very well for my version of heel-toe shifting. It gave me the clearance I needed and allowed me to very easily operate the gas and brake pedal at the same time. When I used the stock pedal faces, I wasn't quite as comfortable, and I actually ended up resting my heel on the throttle arm instead of the pedal face. In the end, with the spring combinations and the fall-off point of the clutch and the spacing, I was able to heel-toe shift very well with these pedals. I spent over a month driving on these pedals in multiple different races, different types of cars, as well as different sims. Each and every time my calibration settings were flicker-free and held on perfectly. I also found there to be almost zero break-in period for these pedals. They have held that calibration since the day I pulled them out of the box. Very nice. I did try the Simagic P2000 pedals with a couple of combinations of supplied springs on the brake. The stock settings were fairly light and allowed for a long travel brake pedal. I also went to some of the much stiffer springs, and this not only increased the pressure required for braking, but also reduced the throw of the pedal by a good margin. Stiffer equals shorter, softer equals longer throw. They go hand in hand. In all cases, the pedal was stiff, the pedal was smooth, and the readings were very consistent and accurate. The difference in tension and long distance really is more of a personal option more than a right or wrong. And if you have the slave cylinder mounted in the vertical position, making these changes is very easy, as you just have to undo the top nut and redo the stack, and then I would recommend recalibrating your pedals. But you can make the brake feel any way you want for certain types of driving. Since these pedals have been out for a while, I've been able to read through forums, and I've seen a couple of people have actually posted about problems with the hydraulic systems leaking. Not just pouring out fluid, but mainly along that main seal where the post goes inside and outside of the mechanism. So I basically been running these since I installed them on my rig. I've gone to the heavier duty springs. I've done at least 10 different races on them. I've put them on for a month of rigorous testing, and I have not once wiped away the fluid because I really want to see exactly how much fluid is at a point. I expect there to be a little bit of wetness on the post, but is there a dripping? Is there any amount that would actually make this run low or leak it onto anything? So we're going to go ahead and do a quick inspection, do a quick visual inspection around the brakes master cylinder, looking for any signs of any kind of leakage. I don't see any leakage that has gone beyond. So when we do the wipe test, under the cylinder first, bone dry. Alright, here's the shaft going into the brake. I can see a couple of like marks where the piston came out and left like a little bit of impression. It's a combination of dust and dog hair and oil. So I can see oil is definitely on the outside of the post. When I wipe the top, little tiny black mark, but dry. There's no fluid there. On the bottom, absolutely dry, nothing. So no, I'm getting nothing there. Now on the gas pedal is also hydraulic. Now this one uses a reservoir system up here. This one, it's more in the piston. So same thing around the outside of the housing. Nothing, perfectly dry. And then at the hydraulics, at the post, nothing. There is a hint of oil that I can feel on my fingertip, but there is none here that would cause any kind of a reservoir leakage or being low on. I mean, it would take a lifetime of draining. So, no, everything is holding nicely and tightly, and no seal issues, no hydraulic leakage issues whatsoever. Everything is perfectly dry all the way around the base. Very impressive. What a long-winded way. I think that tells you everything that you need to know about the Simagic P2000 pedals. But as you know, I like to break it down, make it very short, concise, and very clear with the good, the not so good, and the bottom line. Starting off with the good, that being, this is a great-looking pedal set. Very unique design. All metal construction. Smooth gas pedal. Adjustable resistance. Great feeling brake pedal. Hydraulic sensation brake pedal. Held calibration well, no flickering. Tuning kit included. Feel very strong, well made. Option for elongated gas pedal. Long lasting parts, load cell gas, load cell clutch, load cell brake. Nowhere heel plate, Ricmotech. Easy calibration software. And now on to the not so good, starting off with the controller board just being kind of open and just kind of being double stuck tape onto the pedals themselves. Or it has no mount. Relatively expensive. Exposed wires, no routing. Not much front to back adjustability of pedals. And now on to the bottom line. What a unique and cool design. I mean, a load cell on every pedal is a really interesting idea. It's something that I have not seen from anybody else, and there are some definite advantages to it. You look at these bar-type load cells, and they're virtually indestructible. So in the case of the gas and the clutch, I don't think that those will ever have a problem in the life of these pedals. In the case of the piston-type load cell on the brake pedal, those are very, very robust and should last a very, very long time. They're industrial-grade type parts, so the longevity of the parts used are really, really cool. Using a damper on the gas pedal was odd to me, and again, I only used it on that #1 setting, but at the same time, it had a really good feel. It was very smooth. I liked the way it applied the pressure. The release was a little slower than a heavy-duty spring. That's the nice thing. To get that much tension on the gas pedal would actually require a heavy-duty spring that would actually give a lot of kickback on it as well. So it does give you a combination of that, which is a really nice touch, and again, unique, and something that I really haven't tested a lot of pedals. I think Fanatic did a damper for the throttle, and again, when I look at a load cell on the clutch pedal, it's just something that I've never really thought of, never really seen. In the not so good section, I did mention that they're relatively expensive, and to put that in context, to be very fair, in the 2-pedal set with a 100-kilogram load cell, you're looking at $665. And I can tell you that this is the least expensive hydraulic brake setup that I can think of at that price point. So when I say relatively expensive, hold the brake, excuse the pun, but it is pretty inexpensive when you compare it to other hydraulic brake pedal systems that are out there. Now in this case, and to be fair, the hydraulics are for feel only, and the pedals are not measuring the pressure of the system. It's being measured by a traditional load cell. And with that said about load cell, when I got into this, I was apprehensive. I was dying to know what it would feel like to use a load cell on the gas pedal, to use a load cell on the clutch pedal. I mean, we've used them on a brake pedal for a long time, but we also usually, when using a load cell, we're switching to a different type of movement, whereas the gas and the clutch had always had this very linear movement compared to a brake pedal. So I was a little bit, I wanted to know, how was it going to feel? And in the end, in a blind test, I don't think I would have really been able to tell the difference between using a potentiometer and a load cell, which really blew my mind. I mean, once it was calibrated to the amount of travel the pedal made, you couldn't tell. And what it ended up being was very, very reliable, and in the end will last a lot longer than a traditional potentiometer, and it actually should be even more accurate. They're a much more higher tech device. Another thing I am going to applaud Simagic on when it comes to the P2000 pedals is giving you different variations. So when you're talking about that 2-pedal 100 kilogram load cell version, load cell hydraulic version at $665, that is actually a pretty reasonable price point for a performance pedal set like this. And then being able to either add on the options later, upgrading the load cell, maybe adding the clutch pedal later, you could get them all the way up to the top of the line variation, and there is no difference. It isn't a mid-level because you got the 2-pedal. It's the exact same parts, the exact same performance, just a lower price point. And then finally is the tuning kit itself. You can see the selection of springs that I have here. I love having a pedal set where, especially on the brake pedal, these are clutch specific, when you can change the dual stage rate of the brake pedal. In doing it, if you make it much, much stiffer, it actually reduces the travel, which is very much how I think a F1 car should feel. The faster you're going, the more performance the brake is, the stiffer and the shorter travel the brake pedal is going to be. And then on the other hand, if we are racing in Yugos, you might want a very long, spongy brake pedal, and having a tuning kit allows you to get more combinations to get the brake pedal to feel exactly how you want it to be, feel, perform, and in that imaginary belief of what you feel the car that you're driving is like, it should mimic that feeling to you. So I love the addition of the tuning kit, and I think it allows everybody to get the brake pedal exactly how they want it. So I think I have now told you everything that I love about these pedals. I think I've told you everything that you need to know. And of course, if you want to get any more information on the P2000 pedals, you can check them out at simmagic.com. You can also check them out at ricmotech.com. And of course, be sure to thumbs up if you like the show. Be sure to subscribe to the channel so you can find out when our next video comes out. And most of all, thank you for watching. This is the SImpit. I'm Shaun Cole, and I'll see you on the track.